everybody, welcome to Keys to ESP. This is episode 9, titled Yes, Slimy Jark. We're going to be talking about OP etiquette. Joined with you guys today from Team ESP, we have Prime's Top 4, Dennis.
Yo.
Vault Tour Top 32, Josh.
Hey.
We have Grand Championship Top 4, Benson.
What's up?
And myself, Grand Championship Top 8. We are repping one of our highest achievements in each of these various Fantasy Flight, Keyforge, organized play titles. And this is because this episode we're going to be running through a little bit more of competitive play and possibly how we approach any type of competitive play in that scene. But before we get into our main topic, let's check up with the guys and see what's been happening in the world of Keyforge with each of us in this world. Dennis, how about you? What have you been up to this past week with Keyforge?
Not much, just selling decks. Probably one of the best time, I don't know why, one of the best selling months I had was November. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, nice. How many did you get sold or moved, I guess?
I moved a lot already, and I have 25 decks I need to pack.
Oh,
wow.
That's a lot more than my 0.
Same.
Nice. Awesome. Get any games in at all, or?
Not at all. Been really busy with work. No games.
Fair enough. How about you, Josh? You got anything going on?
Yeah, it's been the same old, man. Making unboxing videos. I had one up last Saturday, so depending on when you're listening to this, it was November the 27th, maybe 28th. It's November 28th, and it was an underwhelming deck, but it had a lot of interesting cards that paired well. So yeah, check it out.
Awesome. And if you are watching the YouTube video, you finally get to see the live premiere of Joe Dobby's face.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a little bit. We finally got some stuff going on here. So it's a little bit of an Easter egg, I guess, for our listeners. If they go check out YouTube, you can see Joe Dobby's face. How about you, Benson? How you been doing? I know last week we did have a little bit of discussion about your dilemma. Has that been solved at all, and how did that go? I know at least that's something you can update us on, and then of course let us know what else you've been up to for the rest of last week for Keyforge.
Yeah. So from last week's episode, I ended up choosing Phaline as my deck for the leaderboard prize. And it was highlighting a not finished with you alt art. So I'll just pull that up right now. It's not going to be very clear on this camera, but this is what the new image kind of looks like with the Star Alliance character being pulled back in since this beast is not done with him. And he clearly doesn't want any piece of that. But
dude, that looks so cool, actually. That's pretty cool.
I do have to say, if anything, all the alt arts are very nice and definitely sometimes seem like they fit better to the original card than the original image.
Yeah.
More literal in a sense. So that was fun.
I would hope that the alt art makes more sense because they'd have a lot more time to actually choose which piece of art to replace.
That's true. Right? And maybe they'll have a bigger pool to choose from since I'm sure they develop a lot and then they choose the best with testing and then save a couple of nice ones for future uses. And they're probably on set 7 or something like that, set 8 of development. But yeah, the overall deck, I may or may not put up the details of it. The full name of the deck is Phaline Gopal Store Leader. So luckily, all the leaderboard decks now have the term Store Leader in it, making it easier to find and note that this is an alt art deck.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Actually, I think another point, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe on the back of every single Archon card, it has that little arrow thingy now too. Is that correct?
I'll show that as well. So there is that arrow at the top with a 4 in it. Designate top 4. Again, sorry for the poor image quality. Camera can't really pick up and focus.
You can take a picture of it and scan it and add it in post or something.
Yeah, we could do that. Or for YouTubers for sure.
Wait, okay, so Dennis just showed his as well. It's on a different spot on the deck.
Yeah. What the?
Well, this is the Archon.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So the back of the card, the back of the every card in the deck, it's in that position.
It's in the so every card in the deck is the bottom left, but for the Archon, it's on the top right.
That is correct.
They just wanted things to be
it's
so
in a random
unique.
spot, man.
No, if you flipped it upside down, they're the same. But like, so it's in relation to no, hold on. Not really. Huh. It's mirrored? Mirrored.
Maybe the other ones would be here. I don't know, like the other ones.
Well, which one's your Archon, Benson? Which one's the Archon?
The Archon is the one on the top.
Actually, no. Which one's the regular card?
This one's the regular card.
Okay, so Dennis, the back of that is the regular card.
Oh, it's a regular card.
It's a regular card, yeah. The Archon card is the one with top.
That's actually pretty cool in terms of, sorry for the audio listeners, it's just that we're trying to identify. There's this arrow, this symbol on it. We were just very curious in terms of what's special about it. And there's an arrow denoting every single one of these cards that are identified as an alt art deck now, which is actually pretty cool. It gives it a little bit more uniqueness in that people can see right away and identify that it's something given out from organized play.
Yep.
Awesome.
So that's one of the main highlights. And besides that, just like Josh, been making the unboxing videos. And the last episode did showcase a pretty highly rated deck. I definitely didn't see it at first. And so like a title says, I was glad I was wrong. But yeah, like that was pretty exciting. So if you guys want to check it out, feel free. We'll tag ourselves at the end of the video as usual.
Cool. Yeah, just looking at the deck list. I don't know. I mean, it has a Mimic Gel. I'm down for Mimic Gels all day. I love that card. And it also has actually 2 copies of the alt art card. So that's pretty cool.
That's right.
Perfect. One for me and one for you.
If I never play with this deck again, sure, as a collector card.
Oh man. So as for me, just touching base with Keyforge, I was able to actually pick up a display, so that was kind of cool. Hopefully I'll be able to open that up and see what I get in the future. But aside from that, not a whole lot. Just kind of listing decks here and there. And of course, trying to come up with some topics. But luckily for me, this week I didn't have to come up with a topic because Joe Dobby here actually did the grunt work for us, and he actually prepared some questions for us and a little exploration into the world of OP. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the main topic over to Josh and his illustrious voice to guide us on this little journey into OP. So go ahead, Josh. It's all you, man. Take it away.
Wow. I don't even know if my preparation was good enough to fit that intro. But if you guys didn't notice, the title of this podcast was called Slimy Jark. And the reason why is because we all know Slimy Jark. He exists in some of your Brobnar decks, and he only exists to enrage both you and your opponent. And we can see Slimy Jark sometimes in the world of TCGs, you know. So this episode is going to be mainly focused on BM, which is kind of like gamer term for bad-mannered, and how to stay focused when you're facing someone who is kind of doing a little bit of BM here and there, you know, trying to psych you out and etc. But before that, I kind of wanted to get an idea of what competitive play means and how we would each define it. I'll start since I'm already talking. I guess competitive play for me is when 2 people are playing at their best and they are also exhibiting very sportsman-like qualities. You know you're in a very competitive and sportsman-like game when at the end of the game, the winner wins humbly and the loser loses gracefully. and when the game stays hype, it's close overall. Also, when there's something at stake. But with that said, yeah, John, let's start with you. What do you think? What does competitive play mean to you?
Competitive play. I mean, is this in Keyforge context or just in general?
I mean, you could start with Keyforge and branch off to in general. I kind of took the general route, but I mean, I took it within the context of TCGs, so Keyforge is definitely in there.
Okay, sure. No, I guess for me, because I do come from, I guess, other Fantasy Flight OP kind of play styles. As I mentioned before, I played X-Wing before, and I do have that experience. And then coming from Destiny a little bit, being, I guess, fairly familiar with how FFG OP runs their events, I would consider that as my branch of OP, or I guess competitive play. In terms of other kind of like board game tournaments and such, I don't really have a lot of experience in that. Um, and then in terms of other outside things like sports and whatnot, I do play some of those in the past, so I do have that type of experience. But for me, I guess just taking it in the context of, say, board games, card games, um, I mean, I would defer back straight to any type of organized play event, whether it's a game night, whether it's a vault tour, a grand championships, any type of stuff that's officially issued by the publisher. I would most likely consider that as competitive play. And then in terms of, if we're probably going to explore it a little bit further, but in terms of how I approach each of them, it would depend upon I guess the level in which the significance level of each of these types of events that you do go to. So, of course, in terms of the way I approach, say, a game night, right, the most basic of these things would be very different from how I approach, say, a grand championships or a vault tour. In that sense, where I've actually spent more money or even spent more time to actually travel to compete.
Perfect. Yeah. Like especially when you travel, there's a certain amount of preparation that goes beyond just booking the flights and booking the like planning the trip. It's all about like that mental preparation, preparing for the competition as well. Very interesting, and there's a lot to go through. But yeah, DC Trays, Dennis, what do you think?
I played other competitive games, but not card games itself. I used to play competitive StarCraft, so I went up against the pros that you see play now. But as far as in person, what I define what I define competitive is when there's like a prize on the line that you've trained for or practiced for. It takes a lot of preparation for. Like one of the most popular Keyforge organized plays, a Vault Tour. So that's how I would define competitive play.
Yeah, sweet, sweet, sweet. What about you, ChaosChrno? That's
Yeah, pretty much a shared view overall. So competitive play as a term, usually for me denotes more of the higher end plays, or play levels. So anything that's beyond probably store champs and above, is more competitive play for me because it's there's a ranking or something involved. With weekly OP, it's a little lower, and like I guess I'll separate competitive play in terms of a competition, specifically an event, versus being competitive, where I will have obviously a scale, and in OP and weekly stuff, I'm already competitive. But versus casual play, where you just crap a deck and you're just messing around, trying to figure out what each deck kind of does, or exploring a new set kind of thing, widely different mentality. And it's all about getting positive experiences for both the opponent and yourself. Um, with being competitive in OP weekly plays, obviously playing to win, but not trying to like take every single advantage you can over other people's mistakes. More of like, okay, like yeah, just it was a momentary lapse in judgment and it doesn't change the game. Like you're not taking 2-3 turns back kind of thing. Yeah, we can make a modification sort of thing. So that's a bit more in detail, but like um that's my general feel for that level of play versus when you're competing for like a spot for worlds kind of thing. it's a whole new ball game, and that's the term competitive play for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think how competitive you get also scales with what's at stake, right?
Yep.
So yeah, totally get it. That makes sense. Now, when you're entering a competition, like for example, any OP, we'll exclude weeklies. We'll focus on Prime, Store, Grand Championship, World Tours. Out of 100%, how much of that is hype, and how much of that is nerves and being nervous? For me, it's about 75-25. I like to say that I'm 75% hype. I'm just excited to get my table and get the game going. And then 25% nervous. I still do kind of worry about the uncertainty of what my opponent's going to play. And up until if it's an Archon, up until I get to read their deck list and then figure out and then kind of calm my nerves and focus on the deck list in front of me and how I can manage to play around it or beat it. But yeah, what about you, John? Out of 100%?
Man, I don't know if I can put a number on that.
Quantify it, yeah.
Yeah, no, like when you asked that, I guess when you first defined it between hype, what is it between hype and
And nerves, yeah.
and nerves? Like, I think it really it's hard to define, right?
It's true. It's true.
I think more of it for me is just trying my best to just enjoy my time there. I can tell you there's instances where I was extremely nervous, whether it's from lack of preparation or me just doing something stupid, right? Where, for example, when I remember playing when we were at Vault Tour Albany, because of the stupid move I pulled at the very start, which effectively it was a 3-deck survival. I ended up randomly opening up, not randomly, but I ended up opening a brand new.
I remember that
deck right when I was going to scan in my decks. Right,
you entered a sealed deck.
I effectively entered a sealed deck, but I knew what the contents were, but I've never play tested it like in a game format, right? Like that got me actually super nervous, and that was like pretty much 99% nerves, like straight up just like me doing something like completely ridiculous. And I remember sitting down first game, even though I wasn't playing that deck because it was slotted in the second slot, I was extremely nervous. I was shaking the whole time I was playing my first game. And it was, well, also it didn't help that the room was cold, but I can give as many excuses as I want, whatever. But I was like shaking out of my seat. Hopefully it didn't cause any issues or anything, but it was 100% nerves. And I don't know, like to me, it depends on the level of play and whether or not, I don't expect anybody to ever be in that situation. But I've had times where I've gone into competition like that, where it's just like, hey, let's just do something fun just to like throw it around. And, it ends up resulting in like just being super nervous. But yeah, like, so I'm all over the place in that sense, if you wanted to quantify it. But I've also had instances where, I went into an Archon event and I was super confident with the stuff I brought, where it was just like, oh, nothing, I'm good. I was like what Josh said, just ready to get the game going and go for it, right?
For sure. It's I think it varies. Obviously it's not something that you can just define for every situation, but hopefully getting like a general feedback with regards to that. What about y'all, DC Trays, ChaosChrno? Any thoughts?
I can't quantify it either. I'm gonna go off by experience here. So like, let me start with the bad. I'd say my definition at least. The first time I played an in-store like games, I was very nervous because I'd never played card games. So I was very nervous the first time. So going to the competitive side, when we went to Ottawa as 4 of us, when I was super prepared for that game, that format. Lucky for me, I had the first buy. So literally being a triad format, adaptive format, 3 games, I had about an hour and a half to sit and do absolutely nothing. And when in between games of any series, I literally try not to think about Keyforge. I try not to think about any card games, the moves, just because when I'm coming in, I know my deck, I know what it can do, how can it run. So I'm like when I'm prepared, I'm like 100% in the zone. So at that time during primes, I literally took a nap, went into the get like I went to watch few like for like the first 5 minutes, and after that I went to sat in the corner by myself, listening to music to just keep me in the zone until my game started. So for me, the nerves were gone, and then when the nerves hit is when I know I'm about to win, and I was like, what can go wrong? Like I'm on my third key, I'm on check. Can they stop me? But the thing is, it's not nerves of me losing, it's nerves of me. I'm like excitement of what's about to happen. If anything wrong or anything bad or anything good's gonna happen, because like as if you can see the finish line and then can you get there? So that's what the nerves is for me. Because I never try to worry about the opponent. Like I don't look at them. I try to predict their moves, but I don't let the I guess the human side of things play into it. So that's why I just do my own thing, play my own way. Some people like might try to see as BM, but I'm just super quiet. I try not to interact. And then after the game, I was like, "Yo, that was a good game, dude. I was so close. I had a good time." I don't want to show like an emotion because I just wanted it to be like it's about the game, nothing personal. That's all it is.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, totally get that. Sometimes we all get in our zones in different ways, right? And I think the less information you are taking in during your buys, the more you're able to remain focused. So that makes sense. What about you, Chaos?
Yeah. So since this is the first card game and that I got into competitively, I went from 100% nerves to now somewhere closer to 60-40, 40 being nerves, 60 being excitement. And that development came just from playing a lot. So like even the beginning, it was like a weekly event, and Archon brought my first deck with me to the downtown store to play in the first tournament ever. All nerves. No idea what was like what this is because I've never played anything competitively. But yeah, like over time, I got really comfortable with the weekly stuff to the point where it was almost like 90% just excitement because it's just fun, right? At the end of the day. Fast forward to first store champs. Actually GC came before like some of the other events that I was able to participate in. And that was probably the most nerve-wracking in an experienced part in my life of Keyforge. So yeah, I'd say about a 50-50 at that point. Just knowing that the competition is at that level, wondering if I stack up, wondering if I made the right choice of the decks because it was a triad format. Or not triad, but like it was a survival with 3 decks. And yeah, just wondering because getting stomped on weeklies, I'm like, is that going to happen to me here? And then somehow wound up where I wound up. So the further in I go during the event, the more it's excitement over nerves or anything. Because then it's like, oh, made it this far, and like it's just a sense of accomplishment. Even like scrap out now, it's still like I've made it somewhere. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes like we go in with like our own personal goal in mind, like, oh, if I can just make it a top 20, like I'm smooth sailing. And then we hit that, and then we're just like, it's pure excitement from there, right?
Yeah.
The nerves is really when it's like you're goal oriented or, stuff like that.
Yeah, even then, I think though sometimes if you like, I don't know, part of me feels like because I've done a bunch of these like competitions and stuff. To a certain extent, I think it's actually kind of fun having nerves,
Yeah.
and I guess part of it is just like playing sealed or even Keyforge itself allows for that unknowingness of like just in a sealed, right? Where it's like, oh crap, like is it good, is it bad, like it just kind of like gets you flustered. Like to a certain extent, I feel like having the nerves actually kind of makes it more entertaining for myself as well, where it's kind of like, oh shit, can I pull it off? Like, can this be done? Or it's like, oh my god, my deck is crap, but hey, maybe I can find something cool out of it, right? I feel like Keyforge in itself lends to that, where you can play into your nerves a little bit, and then of course, the rest is history in terms of the game, where it's like the people just think you're either a noob or they think you don't know what's going on, and then I just play into that too, be like, I don't know what's going on, but I've played so many games, but whatever.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with that actually. I think it's, a healthy amount of nerves is great, like, because it just makes things interesting overall. Like, and I totally agree that in the setting of Keyforge, like where everything's sealed or you don't know until you're on the table, essentially, because every deck is different, it does add that element of surprise. It's like that thrill that we get from the game.
For sure.
Yeah, but moving on here. So speaking of nerves, like for people who, kind of struggle with dealing with nervousness or might think that it is something more negative than positive, because I know we did speak towards some positive notes of being nervous and etc. What are some things you do to calm down before a game? I know Dennis mentioned earlier, like he plays music, he like chills out, to kind of just stay in the zone and to remain calm and cool. So what do you guys do? And I'll kind of leave it up in the air for people to just come up and answer. I'm not going to call people out anymore.
Yeah, I've always done something similar. Like I think it stems from our experience with sports as well. The whole listening to music, getting your mindset kind of focused, a little bit off the game, but at the same time, like hyping yourself up for it. Chatting with people on the side, just catching up with people. Like if it's your local group, right? Finding out what's happening in their lives, kind of thing. Building that like those relationships as well. So all that stuff just is a positive energy, I guess. Then and like it just helps with the experience. Once like you step away from that and like travel somewhere for like competition, then it's like maybe isolate yourself a little bit, go to the bathroom like 5 times before you go play the next game. Like that kind of stuff happens, right? So just anything and everything that you could do to get yourself into a neutral state. Or there's an alternative thought process as well, where you train under the mindset of heavy pressure. So you get yourself used to performing under a lot of pressure, rather than like, oh, I need to be in a calm state to be able to perform. And like I've always thought about that when I was back then a bit more competitive in certain sports, of which direction should I go in terms of preparing myself for a major event. And I think that also applies in Keyforge.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I mean, coming from some sports, competitive sports as well, I guess that makes sense, in terms of prepping yourself for high pressure situations. But I think for Keyforge and other kind of board game competitive play, I don't know. I think distractions is a big thing. It's just, yeah, like what Chrono Benson talked about, where it's like, oh, talk to other people, their locals, um, just find ways to distract yourself beforehand. I feel like if I'm just quiet and don't do anything beforehand, I get more and more nervous. So for me, I always try to like find a familiar face, just say hi, and then maybe even just start talking about other stuff other than Keyforge, or about the game itself. And then, but when time does come where it's like, oh, people need to check in and everything, hopefully by that point in time, I'm less nervous, unless I decide to pull something stupid like a sealed deck or something. But and yeah, just distractions in general. I mean, I try not to be alone. Try to be a little more social, at least to keep things flowing and keep my mind off things. So.
Sweet, sweet. Yeah, I actually agree with that. Like, I'm the kind of person that's like, when it comes to exams, for example, like I'll study as much as I can, but I never study like within 24 hours. I want to say within like maybe 12, 16 hours of the exam. So I like to chill out by just talking to people, hanging out. And then that in itself, like that distraction, as you were mentioning, kind of helps me in terms of like I'm able to kind of find my base when the turn before a tournament, instead of like overthinking what I've prepared for, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like that's kind of like, yeah, you put it perfectly. I think it's like you know what you know when
Yeah,
the
you know
time
what you know.
comes, and it's kind of like pointless to kind of like go for last minute kind of like thing,
Yeah,
anyways. Yeah.
for sure, because that's the easiest way to trip up, right? Like when you spend all this time preparing and then you you overthink something you prepared for, like, oh man, I've been testing this deck out and I've been using this combo this way. What if I used it another way? And what if you were just thinking about that within hours of the tournament? That could really screw your game. So
Yeah, I think it's more like a clear mind kind of aspect, right? Where it's like, yeah, like when the competition starts, then you kind of go for it and just clear your mind and just go with it. But until then, I think it helps a lot. I think
for sure,
empty your mind of everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I think something that we could get into is when we are faced with players who, well, first of all, I kind of want to hear like some fun examples of what you've experienced or what you would define as like, like BM. And it doesn't necessarily have to be outright flip the table kind of attitude, right? It might be very discrete things. So yeah, I just want to hear what you guys have experienced playing Keyforge. For me, it's very, very rare. Like, I don't think I've ever encountered anyone that has just been downright like unfriendly, no matter what level of competition. Like the Volt Tour was pretty big a scene, and everyone there was super nice in Albany. Everyone was like, talking before and after the game, all casual, but when it was the game, everyone was honed in, and I like that, And yeah, I don't think I've ever faced anything uncool in Keyforge, but there are times when my opponent would be on tilt, and just me being that person, like, who like kind of kind of kind of reads people's energy and gets that energy. Like, you can tell when some people get on tilt, and you're just like, oh boy, I don't really like that. But what about you guys?
I'm gonna speak with experience here. Sorry to cut you off there, John.
Oh no, go for it.
It's not what the other person did / my opponent did. It seemed like what I did against my opponent. So I'm gonna use an example of primes again. I was playing, and then I'm generally a very friendly person. I'll talk to you about anything and everything. But when it comes to game time, for me, it's game time. Like, I'm gonna treat it as, doesn't matter who was across from me, I'm gonna try to win without being, I guess, lack of a better word, a dick. So for me, I wasn't talking. I was focused. I was just in the zone playing, trying to plan out steps ahead or moves ahead, holding my deck, because I can tell based on that what's gonna happen, based on my hand at least. So I wasn't as engaging. I'm not as friendly, but literally that's just how I stay focused. So that, if anything distracts me, it's like when somebody's starting to talk to me or like trying to throw me off, I'd say, or like, oh, like, how come you're so quiet? And I was like, and I told them, I was like, it's just me. This is just how I focus. Doesn't matter who. I told them, doesn't matter who was across that table. This is just how I'm gonna act, and that's how I've been acting throughout the whole day. And then after the game, I tell them, I was like, yo, that was a really good game. Honestly, I was so nervous. I had a good time. It was actually super close, but my point is, it's just like, it seemed like from my body language, I was being a dick, but I actually wasn't. Like, that's just how I focus, and that's how I played, like, competitively. Because like a lot of the times, it's like there's a song playing in my head, and when there's a song playing in my head, that means I'm really, really focused. So it seemed like I was being a dick, but I was just focused at that time.
Yeah, I mean, when you brought up like in terms of if we've encountered any bad mannerisms and stuff in the game, I wanted to say no, because all my like most of the places I've played with are super friendly, and the community is super great. But then I did realize that actually at the very start of
I know this one.
Keyforge, I remember there was a very terrible experience.
I know this one. I think I know this one at least.
Yeah, it was very start of Keyforge. I guess everyone was trying to learn the game. That was back in Coda days and stuff, and there were a few competitions here and there, just stores putting tournaments together. Everyone's trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And I was still learning the game at that point in time, and I decided to go out to this mini tournament out in some town or something. in that tournament, I ended up playing one of the at the end of the higher tables. Ended up being against an opponent that actually ended up being very annoyed, I guess. Because for me, I guess I was trying to I asked a couple questions here and there about like, oh, like how does this work or how does that work? And I guess the people next to the table kind of explained it to me. But it was taking up a bit of time, and I guess my opponent thought I was slow playing because I wasn't really sure of how certain things worked and whatnot. Um, and not necessarily knowing, I guess, all the end of time rules exactly. The opponent thought I was slow playing and ended up effectively throwing expletives out when time was called, and was really, I guess, rude to both myself and the players nearby. We were at one of the last tables as well, so there was a few people watching us as well. I'm just trying to see what's going on. It may have been my fault in terms of not knowing the game fully or whatnot, but yeah, just that gave me a really sour taste in my mouth in terms of this experience. And I mean, at the end of the day, that individual, I think he ended up apologizing to the store, but not to me directly and not to the other players at all. He was really, it was very unhappy, I guess, with the whole situation. I mean, I don't necessarily, I mean, I can't say I don't blame him, but at the same time, it's more of like, hey, dude, it's a casual game. But there were prizes, of course, but yeah, that was one of the worst experiences I've had in any OP experience across all board games. That was the worst. But aside from that, I feel like everything else is the community is really good. So there's always a few individuals who maybe take the game a little bit seriously or a little bit put a little bit too emotional into the game, which I mean, I applaud that because you need emotional people in this game to keep it alive, but at the same time, it doesn't help to actually drive people away as well. So
yeah, that's oof. I would have I would have probably laughed in his face if he was just swearing at me over a card game. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, guys, it's a card game. Like, get over it. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not here for a good time, don't be here. But anyway, Benson, do you have any thoughts?
Just reflecting the same thing as what John said, that like, yeah, the Keyforge community is great. I've only had really overall good experiences with people. There hasn't been any one single incident that's like, oh, that was god awful, or like, yeah, this person was definitely a case of BM or whatever. Most cases it's more of experiencing people on tilt, or even myself, like I'm guilty of the same thing.
me too.
Whether
I'll
it's
take a bet.
whether it's in game in a matchup, whether it's it all boils down to like some level of unfairness, like deep rooted in my own heart, kind of thing. It could literally just be a series of bad luck, and yeah, same thing, same reaction. But yeah, like overall, at the end of the day, as long as the group of people mostly are good, those are the ones that'll stick around. You're gonna build a nice community. Everybody's gonna have a great time. And yeah, like I don't have any key experiences that says otherwise. So I guess I'm lucky for that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think one of the cool things about Keyforge is that it's like a family game. It's that kind of game that, like, what I noticed at competitions, especially at the Volt Tour in Albany, was that most of the people that play this game are either adults or adults that play the game with their kids and bring their kids. So the fact that it's kind of like that family game kind of brings it back and eases that tension at a competition, versus, like, say, in other card games where it's just a bunch of like it's literally just like a sea of, like, people who are like 20 to 40 years of age, just very serious, etc. I like that Keyforge has that family element, and kind of like that attitude and that example that we bring to the game, that is very sportsman-like, friendly, and positive at the end of the day, right? we all experience tilt. I've been there. Like when I'm tilt, I tend to get quiet, or I kind of complain about my own misplays. That happens a
Same.
lot. Yeah, that's happened quite a bit, where I get frustrated at my own misplays, and I understand that it does make my opponent uncomfortable, which is why I kind of end up like apologizing after, because that's happened a few times. Catching myself is one of the main things to kind of making sure that we don't tilt others by through our own tilt, right? But that said, like you know, Keyforge is just a great community in general, and this was actually difficult. We wrote this up. I wrote this up on an Excel sheet, thinking, yeah, we're gonna have experiences for everything, but most of our experiences were really positive, and it's kind of difficult to actually pinpoint any specific time where we didn't have a good time playing this game, right? I'm sure we can all agree to that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, for the community itself, in general, is very accepting. Even at the Vault Tour or something higher level, if you sit down and it's the first game, kind of at the first round, first 2 rounds or something, and you tell your opponent, "Hey, like I just got into the game like 2 weeks ago. Like, you got any tips and kind of stuff?" Even if it's a high level competition, like I've seen that where the community is like more than happy to be like, "Hey, yeah, like we'll take it a little slower." But at least you understand that, like, just understand that this is a high level competition, but if you have any questions, like, feel free to ask me or call a judge or something, like, and we can clarify things or even have a time extension if you have any issues, right? I've seen that at high level competitions where people are super friendly, at least for the first couple rounds, where if you just tell them straight up, like, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, can you like guide me a little bit," kind of thing, like, and everyone's more than happy to like help you out too.
And I think that's important because, like, Keyforge community, particularly in North America, those who are like really hardcore about it and travel for it, when you break it down, the community is like less than 300 people, right? And it's, we can be remembered for placing and having high ranks, but we can also be remembered for being really rude and unsportsmanlike, right? And I think it's important to consider when you enter like a high level play, what do you want the community to remember you for, right? Because this is a card game you like. This is a card game you're going to be showing up to, and you're going to be seeing the same people mostly at these high level play. And I think asking yourself what the community, what do you think the community will remember you for, is much more important than thinking like, how many scrubs am I going to take out this tournament,
Yeah, even then, actually, so you brought up a good point. Um, from experience, where like from other board games, I'm sorry I keep bringing this up, where I come from all these other kind of plays, but the thing is, I want to say with Keyforge though, because the game is so approachable, where you can buy a deck and you can just jump in, kind of thing. There hasn't been in any other instances where there's a lot of diversity, I want to say, in the individuals who participate in Keyforge, in organized play. And what I mean is that, like, look at X-Wing, if I look at Destiny and whatnot, the majority of the people that do play these tournaments and whatnot are dudes, right? I mean, there's few and far between where it's maybe like one or two females, or transgender, or even like any other, like, a lot of the times might be like Asian dudes, white dudes, kind of thing. There is the diversity is minimal, but Keyforge is truly, I think, one of those games where there are people from all races, all genders, all like ethnicities, everything, where everyone plays, and it's actually really cool because at large competitions, I was very surprised with how diverse the amount of people were. Um, Not just, there weren't just dudes there. There were a good number of females there, like older folk, kids, from all ages and age ranges and everything. So I think it's I guess a testament to Keyforge itself in the approachability. And then, of course, for OP to be able to extend beyond, and the community that's able to bring, all these, everyone together, literally, and provide a great experience. And I think the community facilitates that a lot as well.
For sure. I think the diversity just adds to the inclusivity that we have as a community, and I think it's a great thing. It's super great. But with that said, I guess we can just sum it up really quickly here. I think it's very unlikely in Keyforge, which is a blessing, but I think eventually we're all going to encounter someone who isn't as sportsmanlike as we want, as we are. And I think we were able to discuss how we manage that. And I think it's important to say that, people might try to get you to change your playstyle and change your decisions based off how they are reacting or acting at a tournament or what they're saying. But I think it's important to kind of just take a deep breath and understand that you have half of the board, right? Half of the board is yours. That's your territory. That's where you make your decisions. And I think it's good to kind of double back and know that your opponent is all the way over there. And you can totally ignore the BM and focus on your game. Any other things you guys want to close out with?
Well, I mean, I'd have an issue if they start reaching over, though.
Exactly. I'd be like, hey, no.
Back off. My Amber.
What are you capturing? I'll do it for you, sir.
I think a big thing is I guess because even though like there's few and far between where you'll have an instance where something bad happens. But for me, because I did have that experience one time, I think it helped me in terms of realizing, hey, maybe I should learn this game a little bit more, know the rules a little bit better. But I think more importantly is to understand that, hey, I would never want to be in that situation or have someone be in the situation I was. So for me, it's kind of like a check to make sure that, hey, everyone I interact with in the community, like, yes, sometimes I'll be competitive, or I'll be competitive in an environment, right? But I don't want to be pushy or even just to the point where I'm yelling expletives because I'm unhappy about something that happened in a card game. So I think for me, just having that experience and knowing that and realizing that, hey, this probably isn't something good for the community at all, makes A, it looks bad on myself, B, it looks bad for the community, and C, it's just kind of bad etiquette.
Yeah.
So I take that as a thing where it's like, hey, for everyone I approach or compete with, I hope they have a good time at the end of the day, and I never wish that on somebody else, right? Just being unhappy or just not even knowing what to do. Like it kind of sucked being on the receiving end. It's just like, what?
It can be very, very uncomfortable, right?
For sure.
Yeah, and if that person showed up again and again and again, it's unfortunate for them too, because all they'll be remembered for is that BM person, that person you don't want to match up with, right?
I'm gonna throw out a somewhat lengthy reminder here. As a player, it's if the extreme circumstance of your opponent acting out in a way that you feel harassed, just remind yourself that it's not your job to kick them out, to retaliate, to take revenge. Call a judge over, call somebody over to help you out.
That's true.
It's really not your job. If the extreme things happen, to do protect yourself, that comes first, but it is really not your job. Anytime you feel threatened, anytime you feel like you're uncomfortable, call a judge over. Honestly, it really isn't your job. And when it comes to the high level competition, really this stuff rarely, if anything, rarely happens. It bottoms out to like the first few rounds, or like the really high competitive level games. Like BM like this it doesn't happen, honestly. I'm talking about like the top like 1 or 2%. But if it's like, I think I find it happening more on the local level. But like if you go to Vulture, like you guys been talking about, no one really is like a jerk about anything, right? But like I said, it's not your job. Call a judge over. FFG rules, they give warnings and everything, and you can get banned for it, right? So I don't know if you want to take that.
No, that's a great
Yeah.
tip actually, Dennis. I
Yeah.
think even if you have any questions, it doesn't necessarily have to be for bad manners or anything. I think that's one of the things I learned is if you have any question, call a judge. Just raise your hand, yell judge, or before you even do that, to tell the opponents like, hey, like, is it possible? Like, is it okay if I call a judge just to clarify? I think that's a
Yeah.
great first step, if anything, yeah, for any question.
Yeah. Use your judges, guys. They're there. They get paid for this, or rewarded or compensated in some way.
Yeah, or
And
even game nights. I think you can call like an organizer or ask someone else at another table. Be like, hey, can we just like clarify something? I think we do that a lot, even when we had game nights.
So,
and it's important because it doesn't escalate misunderstandings, right? If anything,
True.
someone that so if you have a ruling argument, instead of it becoming a full-blown argument, get a judge, get that clarification. That presence is enough to calm you guys down, and the clarification will just allow you to continue with the game. The last thing you want to do is get banned because of someone else's issues, right? The last thing you want to do is get yourself disqualified because you were acting out, trying to kind of, white knight and handle someone else's issues. So get a judge. Yeah, totally agree. With that said, I think we've pretty much covered it here, guys. This episode was mainly focused on, sportsmanlike conduct, encountering unsportsmanlike conduct, how to deal with nerves. Hopefully, we kind of covered most of that. As we go on, we'll be doing much more than this, obviously. But John, yeah, you can totally take it away here.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Josh, for leading that discussion and helping us through this interesting topic. Actually, I did not remember a lot of these things, and it gave me a chance to actually reminisce a bit about how I started with Keyforge. Thank you very much.
No problem. And I know everyone's playing remotely right now, but you can totally apply everything here to TCO. And you can into any online platform. I would even add that when you're online, don't take anything personally. Because what people say online, like, you don't know what's on the other end of that screen. You don't know what people are really going through, right? And if they're lagging, if they get disconnected, or if they just leave when you're clearly winning, sometimes they leave because they're upset. Other times they leave because of a bad connection, right? It's not necessarily something that should be taken too seriously. First of all, it's not super competitive online typically. Secondly, it's just not worth it. But yeah, sorry, John, you can continue to close.
No problem. And if anybody was at Albany Vault Tour, you need to know that people that did play Josh, apparently he got a lot of compliments about his playstyle and how well versed he was in being a friendly guy across the table.
That's nice.
Yep.
I got these. Yeah, I mean, when we drove back from Albany, we were just laughing our butts off because the comments we got from how nice Josh was I was just like, really? But hey, man, he's a great person, a great competitor, and he is a stand-up guy in terms of competition. I'm not saying that you can walk all over him, but you'll have a good time playing him.
Oh, no. I will. My board will. I will smile my way to winning. And yeah, next thing you know, you lost the game, and I'm still smiling.
You're gonna have fun losing the game, is what he's saying.
Like what I'm saying is, I made it to top 32 out of 150 players, and nobody had a bad experience with me. And I think that's something that we could all try to continue to do. Someone else, if there's anyone else that makes it all the way to top to win the whole thing with the same attitude, kudos to you, man. And you're someone I would actually look up to. So yeah.
Well, once again, thank you, Josh, for leading this discussion with us for this evening at this point in time. And hopefully we will have a few more episodes for this season of Keys to ESP Season 1. We're just gonna wrap up here, and just to let you guys know, we're looking at probably around 12 episodes for this first season, and hopefully we'll have 3 more episodes to come and we will provide some more content in regards to Keyforge, a unique card game, and before taking a break off for the holidays. And we welcome everyone to continue to leave us feedback. Feel free to reach out to us at extrashards@gmail.com. That's extrashards@gmail.com. That is our contact. Or feel free to give us a comment on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and we will try our best to respond to some listener inquiries once we get them. Once again, thank you guys all for listening. Does anybody have anything coming up aside from, I guess, more videos on deck openings? Maybe gameplay, perhaps? What do you guys got? Benson, you got anything?
Yep, exactly what you said. Definitely unboxings coming up on a weekly basis, just like Josh is over there. I'll just put my name down, and then you guys can see my content if you'd like on YouTube. ChaosChrno, ChaosChrno. Yeah, just follow me there.
Awesome. Dennis, you got anything?
Just more decks to sell. Decks with Keyforge, DC trays.
Cool. And of course, Josh, I'm going to open up the floor to you if you got anything coming up.
I'm actually running out of decks to unbox. So I think this week was my last episode of unboxings for now. So I think what I'm going to do is see if I can do connect with people and try to do like webcam based gameplay that we can put up on YouTube. Those will be significantly easier to edit. Well, actually no, the unboxing is way easier, but those will be significantly more fun to edit, is what I'm trying to say, and they'll be more interesting to watch, right? Because I know we're all remote, we're playing remotely right now, and it'd be nice to see some live gameplay that is done over webcam at least. So yeah.
Alrighty. Well, once again, that is the Keys to ESP episode 9. Thank you everyone for listening to us, and hopefully we will see you in the few remaining episodes. Happy forging, everybody.
See ya.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.